My beloved brothers and sisters, prayer is not just an action, it is a journey. A journey that begins with a simple intention and leads us to a profound connection with the one who created us, nurtures us, and knows us better than we know ourselves. Sometimes in life, we feel overwhelmed. Responsibilities weigh us down, fears cloud our hearts, and the world becomes loud and confusing. But the Qur'an reminds us of a powerful secret. When the heart is connected to Allah, nothing can truly break it. Allah says, surely in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find comfort. This is not theory, this is real. The moment you raise your hands and whisper a du'a, your heart begins to soften, your thoughts begin to settle, and you feel a sense of peace that the world cannot manufacture. Prayer is a gift. It is not for Allah's benefit. It is for ours. It is as though our Creator is saying, come to me, speak to me, offload your burdens, I will take care of you. And He does. Every single time. Look at the Qur'an. When Prophet Yunus was swallowed by the whale in the darkness of the sea, he called out to Allah. When Prophet Zakaria longed for a child, he called out to Allah. When Maryam was in pain and alone, she turned to Allah. Every single time the answer came. But notice, the Qur'an emphasizes the sincerity of the heart, not the length of the supplication. My brothers and sisters, sometimes we think I prayed, but nothing changed. In reality, prayer first changes you. It opens your heart, it strengthens your patience, it renews your hope, and when the time is right, Allah opens the doors you never imagined could open. When you place your head on the ground in sujood, you are at the highest point in your relationship with Allah. The world may see your weakness, but Allah sees your devotion, your humility, your longing, and He elevates you. Do not underestimate the prayer you make in tears. Do not underestimate the du'a you make in frustration. Do not underestimate the whispered words you think are too small. Allah hears every sound, sees every tear, and knows every intention. Prayer is your shield. It keeps you away from sin, from sadness, from despair. It surrounds you with light, even when life becomes difficult, and it will. Prayer gives you the strength to carry on. And remember, when you take one step toward Allah, He comes running toward you with mercy, forgiveness, and abundance. So today, renew your connection. Make your prayer your anchor. Stand before Allah with a heart full of hope. Because the one you pray to is the one who owns the heavens and the earth. And He never lets your prayer go to waste. Prayer is one of the greatest gifts ever given to humanity. It is a divine invitation from the Lord of the worlds to come into His presence, speak to Him, and find comfort in Him. Many people think of prayer as a duty, a set of movements, or a ritual they must complete. But in truth, prayer is far more than that. It is a mercy, a privilege, and a profound spiritual doorway opened by Allah for our own well-being. When you look at prayer through this lens, as a gift, everything about it changes. Instead of feeling pressured, you feel honored. Instead of rushing through it, you long for it. Instead of seeing it as a burden, you recognize it as a lifeline that holds you steady through the storms of life. Allah created us with hearts that yearn for peace, souls that long for purpose, and minds that constantly seek clarity. And He placed within prayer everything we need to fulfill these deepest desires. Prayer is the gentle reminder that no matter what happens in your life, you are never alone. You have direct, uninterrupted access to the one who knows your pain, understands your struggles, and is capable of granting you relief in ways you cannot imagine. When we look at prayer from the spiritual perspective, we realize that Allah does not need our worship. We are the ones who need it. The one who created galaxies, oceans, and universes does not become greater when we pray, nor does He become lesser when we forget. He is already perfect. The gift of prayer was not offered to increase His majesty, but to increase our peace, our strength, and our closeness to Him. Prayer is like a spiritual nourishment. Without it, the soul begins to shrink, weaken, and feel lost. With it, the soul grows, finds direction, and gains resilience. Consider the moment when the call to prayer reaches your ears. It is not just a reminder to perform a ritual, it is a call from your Creator saying, come back to me. Leave the world for a few moments, allow your heart to breathe. It is a beautiful moment in which the noise of life pauses, and the whisper of the divine becomes clearer. Even when a person is going through the hardest challenges, the call to prayer brings a subtle comfort. It is the sign that despite everything breaking around you, there is still something unbreakable. Your connection with Allah. Prayer is also a gift because it gives structure to your life. In a world where people often feel overwhelmed, scattered, or directionless, prayer acts as an anchor. It brings you back to a place of stability 5 times a day. No matter how stressed, busy, or emotionally drained you are, those moments of prayer reorganize your inner world. They remind you of your purpose. They calm your racing thoughts and they align your priorities with what truly matters. This structure is not just spiritual, it has emotional and psychological benefits as well. Just as a person who eats regularly maintains physical strength, a person who prays consistently maintains spiritual strength. Another aspect of prayer as a divine gift is the peace that descends when you stand before Allah. It is a peace that cannot be purchased, taught, or imitated. It comes naturally when you disconnect from the dunya and stand in the presence of your Creator. The heart softens, the eyes may fill with tears, the body relaxes, and the soul feels surrounded by mercy. Many people search for this peace in success, relationships, or material achievements, but nothing compares to the peace found in sincere prayer. It is the kind of peace that settles you, reassures you, and gives you the strength to face whatever awaits outside your prayer mat. And then comes the most beautiful part. Prayer is not limited by any barrier. You do not need a specific language, a specific level of knowledge, or a specific social status to speak to Allah. You can talk to Him in your own way, at your own pace, with your own words. You can cry, smile, or simply whisper your thoughts. Allah hears them all. He knows what you are trying to say, even when your words fail. He knows what is in your heart, even when your voice trembles. That level of accessibility is not offered by any human being, no matter how close they are to you. People may get tired, distracted, or busy, but Allah is never too busy for your prayer. Prayer is also a gift because it transforms your character. When you pray with sincerity, your heart becomes softer toward others. You become more patient, more forgiving, more compassionate. Prayer humbles you in front of Allah, and a person who is sincerely humble before their Creator finds it easier to treat creation with kindness. You begin to see blessings you previously ignored. You become grateful for the small things. You feel a deeper sense of trust in Allah's plan. This transformation is subtle but powerful, and it continues to grow every day you commit to your prayer. Finally, prayer is a gift because it is always open to you. No matter how far you have drifted, no matter how many mistakes you have made, no matter how broken you feel. Human beings may judge you, but Allah invites you. People may close their doors, but Allah keeps His door open. And every time you turn back to Him, He welcomes you with mercy and love. That is the true gift of prayer. It is not just an act. It is an embrace from your Creator, reminding you that you belong with Him. One of the most remarkable effects of prayer is the deep inner peace it brings to the heart. In a world filled with constant noise, endless responsibilities, and emotional pressure from every direction, the human soul longs for a place of rest. Prayer provides exactly that, a quiet sanctuary where the heart can breathe and the mind can find clarity. It is not just a ritual. It is a conversation with the one who understands your fears, hears your unspoken thoughts, and knows the state of your heart even when you are unable to express it. This is why the inner peace gained through prayer is unique. It is not temporary, nor is it dependent on external circumstances. It is a peace rooted in the profound connection between the servant and the Creator. When a person stands in prayer, something extraordinary happens. The world pauses, even if just for a few minutes, and the soul shifts its focus from the chaos around it to the calmness that comes with remembering Allah. The stress that once felt overwhelming begins to loosen its grip. The heart that was trembling with uncertainty starts to settle. It is as though the soul recognizes that it has returned to its natural place, the place where it finds its true balance. This is because prayer reconnects you with the one who has full control over every situation you fear. When you understand that the one you are speaking to in prayer knows the solution to your problems long before you even identify them, a wave of tranquility moves through your entire being. Inner peace does not mean the absence of hardship, rather it means the presence of clarity and trust during those hardships. A person who prays regularly learns to approach life differently. They no longer crumble under pressure because they know they have somewhere to turn. They no longer feel hopeless because prayer constantly reminds them that Allah is greater than any difficulty. With this connection, even the most painful moments soften. Even the heaviest burdens feel lighter. You begin to realize that you are not walking through life alone. you are being guided, protected, and supported by the most merciful. Prayer also helps silence the internal noise that often distracts the heart. Modern life is filled with constant stimulation. People carry worries in their minds throughout the day: financial stress, family responsibilities, emotional pain, fear of the unknown. These concerns create a mental crowd that makes it difficult to think clearly or feel at ease. But the moment you say Allahu Akbar and lift your hands to begin your prayer, it is as though you are placing all that noise behind you. Each movement and each verse allows your heart to refocus. You are reminded that Allah knows your struggles in ways no one else does. He knows your limits, your weaknesses, your tears, and your silent battles. The awareness that you are being understood by the one who sees everything gives your heart permission to rest. Another reason prayer brings inner peace is because it creates consistency in an inconsistent world. People's moods change, circumstances shift, and life can sometimes feel unstable. But prayer is constant. It anchors you 5 times a day, giving rhythm to your life and stability to your emotions. This routine not only strengthens your spirituality but also provides emotional grounding. When everything around you feels unpredictable, prayer remains a familiar refuge, something your heart can rely on no matter what else changes. Furthermore, the Quranic recitation during prayer has its own healing effect. Reciting or listening to the words of Allah soothes the heart in ways no human speech can. The melodies of the verses, the meanings they carry, and the divine wisdom behind them all work together to comfort the soul. Even when you are not fully aware of the meanings, your heart still feels the mercy embedded in every verse. This is because the Qur'an speaks directly to the deepest layers of the human soul, the layers that often hold fear, sorrow, and confusion. Prayer gives those layers a chance to be healed. Prayer also brings peace, because it aligns your heart with your purpose. Many people feel restless without knowing why. They search for peace in accomplishments, relationships, or material comfort, only to realize that none of these fulfill the emptiness inside. This is because peace does not come from the outside, it must be generated from within. Prayer realigns you with the purpose you were created for, worshipping Allah and staying connected to Him. When your life aligns with its purpose, confusion fades, and your heart gains direction. A purposeful life is a peaceful life. Perhaps the greatest element of inner peace from prayer is the trust it builds. When you consistently turn to Allah, you develop a quiet certainty that whatever He chooses for you will be the best. This trust is incredibly calming. It frees you from excessive worry about the future and regret about the past. You begin to deal with life one moment at a time, knowing that Allah is managing everything with wisdom. This trust-based peace is not dependent on circumstances. It stays with you regardless of what you are facing. In the end, prayer is not just a spiritual practice. It is a lifeline that restores balance and brings serenity to your innermost self. When the heart connects sincerely with Allah, it gains a peace that cannot be found anywhere else. And once a person experiences that peace, they begin to crave the prayer, not because they have to perform it, but because their soul cannot imagine life without it. When we speak about the power of prayer, it is impossible to overlook the profound lessons contained in the Qur'an regarding supplication. The Qur'an is filled with stories of people who turned to Allah in moments of fear, weakness, uncertainty, or despair, and each time Allah responded in ways that transformed their circumstances in beautiful and unimaginable ways. These stories are not just historical events preserved for information. They are divine reminders that the power of prayer is real, accessible, and constantly at work in our own lives as well. Every verse that describes a servant calling upon Allah is an invitation for us to do the same, with the assurance that Allah's mercy is near and His response is always filled with wisdom. The Quran shows us again and again that prayer is not merely a request, it is an expression of trust. It is a declaration that no matter how complicated the situation may seem, Allah's power is greater. Consider the story of Prophet Yunus. In the belly of a fish, surrounded by layers of darkness, the darkness of the ocean, the darkness of the night, and the darkness inside the creature, he called out to Allah with sincerity. From a place where no human voice could possibly reach any ear on earth, his voice reached the Lord of the worlds, and Allah responded. This story teaches us that no situation is too impossible for Allah to change, no location is too hidden for Him to hear you, and no problem is too great for Him to rescue you from. The Quran is telling you If prayer worked for him in the depth of the sea, it will work for you in the depth of your struggle. The Quran also teaches us about the power of patient supplication through the story of Prophet Zakaria. As he grew older and his hair turned grey, he still held hope that Allah could give him what seemed humanly impossible. His supplication wasn't a moment of desperation, it was a lifetime of trust. And when the time was right, Allah granted him a child, showing us that delay is not denial, it is divine timing. Through this story, the Quran reminds us that the doors of prayer remain open regardless of age, circumstance, or logic. When you ask with certainty, when your hope is anchored in Allah and not in the world, Du'a becomes a source of miracles. Another powerful lesson comes from Maryam. When she faced one of the most difficult and overwhelming moments of her life, she turned to Allah with a heart filled with both fear and faith. The Quran portrays her emotional state with such honesty that anyone facing anxiety or loneliness can relate. Yet in that moment of vulnerability, Allah surrounded her with signs, support, and relief. This teaches us that prayer does not only bring solutions afterward, it brings comfort during the hardship. Sometimes the spiritual strength that Allah places in your heart through prayer is the miracle itself. It becomes the stability you needed to endure what seemed unbearable. The Qur'an also highlights the importance of calling upon Allah from a place of humility. The language used in many verses emphasizes brokenness, sincerity, and deep longing. The Qur'an shows that du'a coming from a humbled heart receives a special kind of mercy. When you drop your ego, when you let go of everything you rely on except Allah, something shifts within your prayer. It becomes more truthful, more beautiful, and more powerful. Allah responds in ways that heal your heart even before your circumstances change. Another key lesson from the Quran is that prayer is not always about asking for something specific. Sometimes it is about asking for strength, patience, guidance, or clarity. The story of Prophet Musa is an example of this. When he fled Egypt, tired, hungry, and afraid, he simply said, "My Lord, I am in need of whatever good you send down to me." He didn't specify what he wanted because he knew that Allah's choice would be better than his own. And what happened? Allah provided him a home, safety, companionship, and a new purpose. The Quran teaches us that when you leave your needs open in the hands of Allah, He provides not only what you asked for, but what you didn't even realize you needed. The Quran also teaches consistency in supplication. Some prayers are answered quickly while others take time. The stories in the Quran show that persistent dua is a sign of deep faith. When you keep asking, it doesn't mean Allah hasn't heard you. It means He is preparing something greater. The Quran reassures you that every sincere prayer is recorded, valued, and answered in the best possible way. Sometimes the answer is protection from something harmful, sometimes it is a blessing delayed for your benefit, and sometimes it is peace in your heart, which is often the greatest answer of all. Ultimately, the spiritual lesson from the Quranic stories is that dua is never wasted. Not a single word, not a single tear, not a single whispered prayer goes unnoticed. The transformation that occurs through prayer is both internal and external. It strengthens your character, deepens your trust, and cleanses your heart from fear and negativity. Even before Allah changes your situation, He changes you. And that is one of the greatest spiritual effects of supplication. These stories in the Quran are there to remind you that no matter what you are facing, there is a path to relief. And it begins with raising your hands and calling upon the one who has never left you. Consistency in prayer is one of the most transformative forces in a believer's life. While a single prayer brings peace, healing, and clarity, it is the regular commitment to prayer that creates long-term spiritual growth and inner strength. Many people underestimate the impact of consistency because they expect dramatic changes overnight, but the reality is that prayer works like water shaping a stone, slowly, gently, and steadily. Over time, the effects are undeniable. Consistency in prayer builds a stable heart, a disciplined mind, and a soul that remains connected to its Creator in all seasons of life, whether in joy or difficulty. When a person prays consistently, even when they are tired, busy, or emotionally drained, they develop a powerful sense of discipline. This discipline does not only apply to worship, it begins to influence every area of their life. A person who can pull themselves away from the world 5 times a day learns how to detach from distractions, how to prioritize what matters, and how to stay committed to meaningful goals. Consistency in prayer trains the heart to stay focused, and trains the body to follow through. What begins as a religious obligation quietly becomes the foundation for personal excellence and growth. You become more patient, more organized, more grounded, simply because your life revolves around moments of remembrance. Another transformative effect of consistency in prayer is the protection it brings. Prayer becomes like a spiritual shield that surrounds your heart, your mind, and your actions. When you regularly stand before Allah, your awareness of Him increases, and that awareness shields you from many forms of darkness, from harmful choices, destructive habits, and negative influences. Even the temptation to do wrong becomes weaker because your relationship with Allah becomes stronger. You begin to feel accountable, not in a fearful way, but in a way that keeps your heart clean and your conscience alive. This consistent connection shapes your moral compass, guiding you gently toward what is good and away from what is harmful. Consistency in prayer also purifies the heart. Every time you pray, especially when you pray with humility, a layer of heaviness is removed from your heart. It may be the heaviness of stress, guilt, fear, sadness, or confusion. You may not notice the change immediately, but over days and weeks, you realize that you are becoming lighter inside. Things that used to overwhelm you begin to lose their power. Worries that once consumed your thoughts feel smaller because your heart is constantly being washed by the remembrance of Allah. This purification is not a one-time event, it is a continuous process. Just as the body needs daily nourishment, the heart needs daily prayer to stay spiritually healthy. There is also a beautiful emotional transformation that comes from being consistent in prayer. You begin to feel a closeness to Allah that cannot be described in words. The relationship becomes personal. You no longer pray because you must, but because you genuinely want to. The moments of standing, bowing, and prostrating become moments of comfort rather than routine. Even when life is chaotic, you look forward to prayer because it becomes the calm in the storm, the one place where your heart feels safe. Consistency deepens this bond. It creates familiarity with worship, and familiarity brings love, a love that grows quietly and beautifully with every prayer you perform. Another powerful effect of consistency is the strength it brings in times of difficulty. When hardship arises, whether through loss, fear, illness, or uncertainty, the person who is consistent in prayer already has a strong spiritual foundation. They do not collapse even when they feel pain, because their hearts have been gently trained to rely on Allah. They have spent months or years pouring their thoughts into prayer, trusting Allah with small matters, and building a relationship that becomes a source of resilience. When a major test arrives, they know where to turn. They know how to find peace. They know that Allah, who has always been listening, will carry them through. This spiritual strength is one of the greatest gifts of consistent worship. Consistency also brings clarity. Many people struggle with indecision, confusion, or overthinking. But when you pray regularly, your mind begins to clear in ways you may not expect. The repetitive act of pausing the world and focusing on Allah resets your mental state. You begin to see problems from a higher perspective. Decisions feel easier because your heart is more aligned with what is right and beneficial. The whispers of anxiety grow weaker, and the voice of intuition, guided by faith, grows stronger. Consistent prayer sharpens inner guidance, and that guidance leads to better choices in both spiritual and worldly matters. Most importantly, consistency in prayer transforms the soul. It creates humility, gratitude, and contentment. You become aware of the blessings you have, instead of constantly thinking about what you lack. You begin to trust the timing of Allah. You become comfortable with both His giving and His withholding, knowing that each contains wisdom. Your spiritual maturity grows and your heart becomes more attuned to the beauty of faith. In the end, consistency is not about perfection. It is about returning to Allah over and over again, even when you falter. It is about showing up with sincerity, even when your heart feels heavy. Every prayer performed with consistency softens you, strengthens you, and elevates you. Gradually, quietly, and beautifully. And one day, you look back and realize that prayer has shaped you into someone more peaceful, more grounded, and more connected to the one who created you. Prayer is not only an act of worship, it is a shield that protects the believer in ways visible and invisible. Many people walk through life feeling unprotected, vulnerable to emotional wounds, worldly pressures, and spiritual dangers they cannot always recognize. But the one who prays regularly carries a kind of armor that is not crafted by human hands, but by divine mercy. This shield does not eliminate hardships, but it gives the heart the strength and clarity to withstand them. Prayer forms a barrier between the believer and the things that weaken the soul, and it provides a safe refuge when the world becomes overwhelming. One of the greatest forms of protection prayer provides is protection from sin. Human beings are naturally inclined to make mistakes, to be tempted, and to feel the pull of desires that sometimes lead them away from what is good. Without a strong spiritual routine, it becomes easy to slip, easy to forget, and easy to fall into habits that slowly harm the heart. But when you pray consistently, you are constantly reminded of Allah's presence in your life. That awareness affects your choices. It makes you think twice before doing something harmful. It softens your conscience, making it more sensitive to right and wrong. Even if you stumble, the feeling of regret and the desire to return to Allah appear quickly. Prayer keeps your heart awake, preventing it from becoming numb or indifferent to wrongdoing. Prayer also protects the believer from despair. Life can be heavy, sometimes unbearably so. People struggle with loneliness, financial pressure, grief, heartbreak, betrayal, and the quiet battles that no one else sees. These challenges can weigh down the heart until a person begins to feel hopeless. But a person who prays regularly is never truly hopeless, because with every prayer, they are reminded that Allah is near, listening, and in control. Prayer gives hope even when the situation looks impossible. It whispers to the heart, "You are not alone. Relief is coming. Trust your Lord." This hope is a protection against the emotional storms that could otherwise break a person from within. A heart connected to Allah bends, but it does not shatter. Another form of protection prayer provides is emotional balance. When you take time to step away from the world and stand before Allah, you allow your emotions to reset. The anger you felt begins to dissolve. The fear you carried becomes lighter. The sadness that seemed overwhelming becomes more manageable. Prayer gives you space to breathe, spiritually and emotionally. It centers your thoughts and releases tension from your heart. Without this spiritual pause, emotions can become overwhelming and lead to impulsive decisions or destructive habits. But prayer acts as a calming force, guiding your emotions gently back to balance. Prayer also protects the believer from anxiety. So much of anxiety comes from trying to control things that are beyond our control. The future, people's opinions, outcomes, unexpected events. When a person prays, they train their heart to trust Allah with these uncontrollable matters. This trust becomes a shield against excessive worry. It doesn't mean that fear disappears completely, but it becomes contained, manageable. You begin to feel that whatever happens, Allah will guide you through it. This trust is a powerful defense against the type of anxiety that drains your energy and steals your peace. There is also protection from loneliness. Prayer connects you to the one who never leaves you, never gets tired of hearing you, and never turns you away. Even if the world is harsh, even if people disappoint you, even if you feel isolated, prayer reminds you that Allah is closer to you than your own heartbeat. That closeness fills the emotional gaps that no human companionship can fill. It strengthens your sense of worth and reminds you that you are seen, heard, and valued by your Creator. This spiritual companionship is one of the strongest forms of protection against the emotional emptiness that many people silently suffer from. Prayer protects your heart from arrogance as well. When you bow and place your forehead on the ground in humility, you remind yourself that no matter how successful or powerful you become, everything you have is from Allah. This humility protects you from pride, which can destroy relationships, cloud judgment, and distance you from the blessings of sincerity. Regular prayer keeps you grounded, grateful, and aware of your true place before your Creator. Furthermore, prayer acts as a shield in ways we cannot fully understand. There are unseen dangers, tests, and challenges that Allah wards off simply because you reached out to Him in prayer. Situations that could have harmed you are quietly removed from your path. Difficulties that were meant for you are softened. People who may have intended harm are kept away. Often, you will never know what Allah protected you from, but the presence of prayer in your life becomes a reason for divine protection that surrounds you day and night. Ultimately, prayer protects the believer by strengthening their relationship with Allah. When that relationship is strong, everything else feels safer, clearer, and more manageable. You walk through life with a sense of security, not because you are strong, but because Allah is protecting you. You feel a quiet confidence, not because you control everything, but because you trust the one who does. Prayer is not just a ritual. It is a shield that guards your heart, your mind, your faith, and your peace. And the more sincere your prayer becomes, the stronger that shield grows, surrounding you with light in a world that often feels dark. Prayer is not only a form of worship, it is a journey of returning to Allah with hope and gratitude, again and again, no matter the state of your heart. In a world where people often feel unappreciated, unheard, or weighed down by life's responsibilities, prayer becomes a place where you can breathe freely and reconnect with the one who has never stopped loving you. Hope and gratitude are two qualities that blossom beautifully through prayer, and together they transform a person's entire outlook on life. They soften the heart, brighten the soul, and bring a sense of purpose to even the smallest moments of your day. Hope is one of the greatest blessings Allah places in the heart of a believer. Without hope, life becomes heavy and challenges become unbearable. But prayer nurtures hope in a way that nothing else can. When you speak to Allah about your fears, your dreams, your mistakes, and your longing for a better tomorrow, you revive hope inside yourself. You remind your heart that things can change. You remind your soul that Allah's mercy is greater than your problems. And you remind your mind that no matter how impossible something feels, Allah can make a way. Prayer teaches you that a situation is never truly closed as long as your hands are raised to the sky. Hope born from prayer is different from ordinary optimism. It is not based on circumstances or probabilities. It is based on trust. You trust that Allah knows what you do not know. You trust that He sees the road ahead when you can't. You trust that even your disappointments carry wisdom. This makes hope unshakable. Even when life does not unfold the way you expected, your heart remains steady because prayer keeps you connected to Allah's promise that He is with the patient, with the grateful, and with those who turn to Him sincerely. Prayer becomes a reminder that every hardship has an ending, every night has a dawn, and every tear is seen by the one who will replace it with joy in due time. At the same time, prayer cultivates deep gratitude. Gratitude is not only about saying thank you, it is about seeing the world through a lens of appreciation. When you stand before Allah and reflect on your blessings, both obvious and hidden, your heart becomes filled with warmth and contentment. You realize that even on your hardest days, Allah has given you more than you can count, the ability to breathe, to think, to feel, to hope, to love, to pray. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present. It makes you aware of the countless mercies Allah showers upon you every single moment. Prayer becomes the bridge between hope and gratitude. Through prayer, you express gratitude for what you have and hope for what is yet to come. This balance protects the heart from becoming bitter or restless. Gratitude keeps you grounded and humble, while hope keeps you optimistic and motivated. Together, they form a spiritual harmony that stabilizes the heart, no matter what life brings. One of the most beautiful effects of prayer is how it helps you return to Allah with sincerity, even after you have faltered. Human beings are not angels. They make mistakes, they forget, they fall, and they struggle. But prayer is Allah's way of telling you, come back to me no matter how far you think you've gone. It is an invitation filled with compassion, not judgment. When people disappoint you or when you disappoint yourself, prayer becomes the place where you rebuild your relationship with your Creator. This act of returning, known as ruju ila Allah, is one of the most powerful spiritual experiences a believer can feel. When you return to Allah with a broken heart, He repairs it. When you return with guilt, He forgives. When you return with confusion, He guides. And when you return with emptiness, He fills you with tranquility. No matter how many times you fall, prayer gives you a way back every single time. There is no door in this world more welcoming than the door of Allah. Prayer also transforms gratitude and hope into action. When you regularly stand before Allah, you begin to live with greater awareness. You start speaking more kindly because your heart feels the softness of gratitude. You become more patient because your heart feels the calmness of hope. You treat others with compassion because prayer reminds you of how much compassion Allah has had toward you. Gradually, you notice that your life becomes more meaningful, your relationships become more gentle, and your inner peace becomes more steady. All of this begins with a sincere moment of standing before Allah in prayer. And through prayer, you also learn to recognize blessings even in the things that don't look like blessings at first glance. A delay becomes protection. A closed door becomes redirection. A hardship becomes purification. A loss becomes elevation. You start seeing life with spiritual clarity, a clarity that only comes from a heart connected to Allah. Hope keeps you moving forward, and gratitude keeps you grounded in the present moment. In the end, prayer is a journey of returning to Allah with a heart full of hope, trust, humility, and gratitude. It is the place where fears are quieted, where wounds begin to heal, and where the soul rediscovers its true direction. Through prayer, you realize that as long as Allah is with you, you have every reason to be hopeful and every reason to be grateful. And this combination is one of the greatest gifts Allah can place in your heart. As we reflect on the journey through the power of prayer, we begin to understand that prayer is not merely an act. It is a lifeline, a sanctuary, a shield, and a transformative relationship with the Lord, who knows us more deeply than anyone ever could. Each part of this journey carries its own beauty. Prayer as a divine gift reminds us that Allah has given us a direct path to peace and healing. Inner tranquility through connection teaches us that every moment spent with Allah softens the heart and calms the soul. The Qur'anic stories show us that Du'a has moved mountains for those before us, and it continues to open doors in our own lives in ways we may not yet see. Consistency in prayer molds our character and strengthens our spirit, turning worship into a daily source of discipline and resilience. The protective power of prayer shows us that every sajda shields us from harm, despair, and spiritual darkness. And hope and gratitude remind us that prayer is not only where we seek solutions, it is where we discover contentment, rediscover purpose, and return to Allah no matter how far we have drifted. In truth, prayer is where worries dissolve, where tears find meaning, where strength is rebuilt, and where the believer becomes closest to their Creator. Prayer shapes the heart into one that trusts more, complains less, and sees life with clarity and humility. It elevates us in ways the world cannot measure. So let every prayer be a moment in which your heart opens to Allah fully. Let it be your comfort in difficulty, your gratitude in ease, your anchor through every storm, and your quiet reminder that you are never alone. As long as your forehead touches the ground and your hands rise in supplication, you remain connected to the one who holds your future, your healing, and your happiness in His hands. May Allah make our prayers sincere, meaningful, and transformative. May He fill our hearts with light, our lives with peace, and our souls with unwavering trust in Him. And may He make us among those who find their strength, their purpose, and their ultimate comfort in prayer. Ameen.